In the depths of contemplation, a profound and unsettling truth emerges about the nature of addiction. What if the very force that nearly destroyed you was actually reaching for your salvation? This paradox may sound absurd, even offensive to those who've endured addiction's torment, yet remain open to the possibility because this reframing might fundamentally transform how you understand your deepest struggle and your relationship to suffering. The addict is not weak, not morally bankrupt, not someone lacking discipline or character. The addict is a mystic who's lost their direction, a soul reaching desperately for transcendence but grasping at the wrong door. Consider this profound reorientation. What if your addiction wasn't a curse but a calling? What if the universe, God, or the fundamental ground of being has been speaking to you all along through this very suffering? We must explore together something extraordinary and transformative, a complete reimagining of addiction as divine communication. By journey's end, you may discover you haven't been cursed at all. You've been chosen for something greater. Society approaches addiction through the narrowest possible lens. Disease, dysfunction, moral failure, someone broken and in need of repair. The whole mechanical approach misses the essential truth. What we call addiction is actually a spiritual crisis, wearing the mask of chemical dependency. It's a soul in revolt against the shallowness of ordinary existence. It's someone whose inner being screams for depth, for meaning, for connection to something vast and true. When that connection cannot be found through conventional pathways, the seeking becomes desperate and chaotic. The addict attempts to reproduce the mystical experience through chemistry. You search for God in a bottle, in a pill, in a powder, not from weakness but from deep remembering. Somewhere within you echoes the knowledge that there's more, that ordinary consciousness and ordinary life as constructed simply cannot suffice. The longing itself is sacred and absolute. The problem lies not in the longing but in the method. The substance becomes a false prophet, promising heaven while delivering hell. It offers a glimpse of unity and transcendence, then snatches it away, leaving you more isolated than before. Yet here's what's extraordinary. The universe has been trying to redirect you all along, not through punishment but through the very consequences of your chosen path. At the core of addiction lives a hunger that most cannot fathom. This hunger has been deeply misunderstood by those who haven't experienced it. It's not mere physical craving, though that's how it manifests in the body. It's not psychological dependency, though doctors name it this way. It's something far older and deeper, something we might call spiritual homesickness, a longing that echoes through your very being. For years, you've carried the story everyone tells addicts, that you lack willpower, that you're weaker than others, that discipline and determination could stop this. You could be like those who have one drink and walk away. This is fundamental misunderstanding. That insatiable hunger isn't weakness. It's your soul remembering its true nature. You're not craving the substance itself. You crave union, the dissolution of separation's illusion, the experience of coming home to yourself, to the ground of all being, to the infinite consciousness you truly are beneath all layers of identity. Every addict is a mystic who's forgotten what they're seeking. The substance gives you a glimpse for minutes or hours. The walls come down. The ego quiets. You feel connected, whole, complete. Then it ends, and you're back in what we call the prison of ordinary consciousness. You reach again, not because you're chasing pleasure, but because you've tasted liberation and cannot forget what freedom feels like. Your hunger is absolutely holy. You're simply feeding it poison. Addiction systematically dismantles the ego's careful architecture. It takes everything you thought you were and reduces it to rubble with methodical precision. Your career, your relationships, your self-image, your pride, your certainty about who you are and what you're capable of. One by one, every pillar of your constructed identity crumbles and falls. While in this destruction, it feels like annihilation, like losing everything that matters, like failing at the fundamental task of being human itself. Yet an ancient teaching we've forgotten speaks truth here. The false self must die before the true self can emerge. You cannot pour water into a cup already full. You cannot build something authentic on rotten foundation. What addiction does is strip away everything that isn't essential. Every mask, every pretense, every story you've told yourself about who you are. The job title, the relationship status, the reputation, the carefully constructed personality you believed was you. When all that's finally stripped away, when you're empty and hollowed out, reduced to your absolute essence, that's when room opens for something real. That's when grace can enter. That's when your true nature reveals itself. You weren't losing everything. You were being emptied to make room for the sacred. The breaking open is not your story's end. It's the beginning. Here's something rarely understood about addiction among those who haven't lived it. It's often a symptom of feeling too much rather than too little, a sensitivity that becomes overwhelming. Addicts frequently possess raw nerve endings, finely tuned to existence's deeper frequencies. You experience the world in high definition while others watch in standard quality. Joy is sharper. Pain cuts deeper. Beauty overwhelms completely. The suffering of others isn't merely observed from a distance, but absorbed directly into your very being. For years, you've believed this was the problem, that you're too sensitive, too emotional, that your wiring is somehow wrong, so you learn to numb it, to turn down the volume. The substance became a buffer between yourself and the overwhelming intensity of simply being alive. But your sensitivity isn't a flaw, it's a capacity, an ability to receive signals others cannot detect, to perceive layers of reality most people filter out, to sense existence's subtle frequencies requiring different antennae altogether. Those chosen to carry messages must first receive them. Your heightened sensitivity is divine circuitry. You're built to channel something, to transmit something, to bridge something. The raw nerve isn't the problem, it's the instrument. You simply needed to learn how to play it. At the deepest level, addiction attempts to solve what we might call the fundamental human crisis, the feeling of being separate. We walk around in these bodies, locked inside these skulls, experiencing ourselves as isolated units navigating through a hostile universe. The loneliness of this isn't merely emotional, it's existential, the core wound of human consciousness. The mystics of every tradition report the same essential insight: separation is illusion. You are not a separate wave in the ocean. You are the ocean expressing itself as a wave. You are not a fragment of God. You are God pretending to be separate so that unity can be known and truly appreciated. Yet we forget this. We're conditioned from birth to believe in our separateness, to defend our boundaries, to build our identities. For some people, this forgetting becomes unbearable. The isolation is so acute they'll do anything to escape it. Substances offer temporary solution. They blur boundaries. They create the illusion of union. For a few hours, you're not alone. You're merged with everything. The tragedy is that you're using chemistry to reproduce an experience that's your birthright. You're buying a counterfeit of something you already own. The substance was never the problem. It was a misguided solution to a spiritual problem. You believed you were separate from God when in truth you've never been anything else. Even when you fall, you're being taught. This is crucial understanding. Relapse fills recovering addicts with more shame than anything else. Its proof they believe confirms their hopelessness, their fundamental difference from those who stay clean. But what if relapse isn't failure? What if it's feedback? Every return to the substance shows you something essential. You're shown what you're still avoiding, what wound you're still unwilling to feel, what truth you're still trying to outrun. Most people try to willpower their way through recovery. They white-knuckle it. Sometimes it works for a while, but if the underlying spiritual hunger isn't fed with something real, relapse becomes inevitable, not from weakness, but because you're trying to heal a soul-level problem with a behavior-level solution. The universe's patience with your learning curve is infinite. Every fall is part of the teaching. The question isn't why did I fail again, but what is this showing me that I couldn't see before? The path to wholeness is not straight. It's a spiral. Sometimes you must circle back to the same lesson multiple times before it penetrates deeply enough to transform you. Yet we must not romanticize this. The lived reality of addiction is hell. It's waking up sick, looking in the mirror, and not recognizing the person staring back. It's the lies told so many times, you forget what's true. It's the relationships destroyed, the trust shattered, the years that feel utterly wasted. It's loneliness and shame sitting in your chest like stone, the certainty that you're uniquely broken, that everyone else figured out how to be human except you. If you're in this darkness right now, if these words find you in the middle of your own struggle, know that you're seen. What you're carrying is heavier than anyone who hasn't walked this path can comprehend. Yet consider something that might seem impossible from where you're standing. What if you're exactly where you need to be? Not because this suffering is good or because you deserve it, but because genuine transformation doesn't happen in comfort. It happens in fire. Every prophet, every mystic, every wisdom keeper in human history walked through their own wilderness. Jesus in the desert, Buddha beneath the Bodhi tree, the dark night of the soul that authentic awakening requires. You must die before you can be reborn. You must descend before you can rise. The pearl forms around the irritant. Gold is refined in fire because heat burns away everything that isn't gold. Your suffering hasn't been meaningless. Every moment has been shaping you, preparing you, refining you for something you cannot yet see. The chosen ones are always sent into wilderness first, because you cannot guide others through darkness unless you've learned to navigate it yourself. Here's what happens when you finally stop running. When you surrender not to addiction but to the journey itself, not to the substance but to the truth of what you've been seeking all along, you discover you were never separate from God. You were God experiencing limitation so wholeness could be known. You were the infinite pretending to be finite. You were the ocean dreaming it was merely a wave. The addiction was the alarm clock trying to wake you up. The freedom that comes isn't the absence of craving. It's understanding the craving, recognizing the hunger for what it truly is. A longing for home, for unity, for dissolution of the illusion that you were ever alone. You stop fighting yourself. You stop seeing addiction as evidence of your brokenness. You see it as evidence of your depth, your capacity, your soul's absolute refusal to settle for shallow existence. Something remarkable shifts. You become someone who carries the wound differently, someone who understands that suffering and wisdom are inseparable, that the very thing that nearly destroyed you is precisely what qualifies you to help others survive their own destruction. The addict becomes the healer. The wounded becomes the wise. The lost becomes the guide. You're not healed because the pain ends. You're healed because you become someone who can alchemize pain into profound purpose. Someone who can look another suffering soul directly in the eyes and say with absolute certainty, I know. I've been there, and there's a way through. This is the gift hidden in the curse. This is the light that could only be born from profound darkness. Your story isn't over. It's just beginning to make sense. If these words found you, they were meant to reach you. Not everyone will understand what we've explored here today in this deep dialogue. Not everyone needs to. This message is for those who recognize themselves in it. Those who've walked through fire and wondered why. Those who've carried shame for years and are finally ready to see it differently. You're not alone in this journey. Those who walk this path recognize each other. There's a knowing in the eyes, a depth that cannot be faked, a compassion that only comes from having been completely shattered and carefully reassembled. Sit with these truths. Let them settle into your being. Let them reframe everything you thought you knew about your struggle. Your addiction wasn't your failure. It was your initiation. The journey you've been on has been preparing you for something far greater than you can see from here. Trust that even when it doesn't make sense, especially when it doesn't make sense, there's wisdom in the mystery. You were chosen for this journey and you're exactly where you need to be, doing exactly what needs to be done.